You know what movie studios do with movies that are highly popular and what they very obviously pay more attention to? Earn a lot of cash in the box office? Make sequels, of course! No matter how unnecessary these sequels are, as clearly established by their predecessors, movie studios will try to find a way to work a sequel into the theaters. The romantic musical Grease is no exception. I freaking love this movie. I would even go as far as saying it's one of the best musicals ever made. This one movie is all we really needed for Grease. But apparently, without the involvement of the writers of the Broadway show, Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey, producers Robert Stigwood and Alan Carr made Grease 2. It was directed by Patricia Birch, choreographer for the first movie and the stage show. Going into this movie, I wasn't expecting much, especially since it was an unnecessary sequel. Even co-producer of the show, Jim Jacobs, said it was the pits at the time, and even 27 years later in an interview, it still brings a brief frown to his face. I don't blame him. I'd feel the same way if a movie based on my play got an unnecessary sequel. It takes place 2 years after the first film, and unlike Home Alone 3, which doesn't have any of the characters from its predecessor, Grease 2 at least brings back only a few minor characters from the first film, none of the main cast though. The leading man this time is Michael, an English exchange student who is the cousin of Sandy from the first film. What that has to do with the plot, I have no idea, just a little something to tie the films together, I guess. The new leader of the Pink Lady, Stephanie, has dumped the new leader of the T-Birds, Johnny, and Michael wants to earn her affections. He does this by dressing himself up as a mysterious motorbike rider and taking her on a fun ride, but Johnny wants Stephanie back bad. Right when the film starts, we get a 7-minute musical number. I'm not kidding, that's how long it is. The songs in this film are not as memorable as in the first movie. At best, these songs are average. But at worst, they're just stupid, unnecessary, they slow the film down, no meaning to it, lack of good choreography, the focus on the plot is just not there like it should be. One of the most unnecessary is when one of the T-Birds fakes a nuclear attack and takes one of the Pink Ladies to the fallout shelter to have sex with her. I guess this is supposed to relate to the time period of when the film takes place, but it's just stupid. But I should also mention the one where the substitute teacher gives a lesson on reproduction. It sounds like something an immature biology teacher would sing, not a musical number from a sequel to one of the best musicals of all time. I know the first film experienced with innuendos, but this movie is like one big innuendo that lasts for almost 2 hours. In fact, the songs themselves feel like they take forever. We can't just let the film go? With the first movie, we wanted the songs to keep going, especially the catchy tunes like Grease Lightning and Born a Hand Jive. But in this film, you just want the songs to stop so we can get on with the plot already. As unnecessary as the songs are, the main focus isn't even that fun either. A lot of that might do with how the characters are established. I never really liked how the T-Birds were portrayed in this movie. The first film did set them up as jerks, but a lot of that was due to insecurity. Okay, that would mainly apply to Danny, but you get the picture, right? In this film, they're just creeps. That's it. There's nothing more to it. The T-Birds didn't need to be this jerky. What about when Michael dressed up as the cool writer that Stephanie wants to date? How does no one, least of all Stephanie, figure out who this is? I guess we as an audience are supposed to know this, but if they took in a little more effort to hide his face more, but not so much so that we couldn't tell, then maybe it would be more believable that the other characters have no idea who this cool writer is. At one point, Michael would have revealed his identity to Stephanie, but they get interrupted. Oh, and speaking of which, early on, Stephanie has established that she doesn't like Johnny because he's a delinquent, but she doesn't like Michael because he's not a delinquent. Which one are you going with? I could see her as not being the most mature. I mean, after all, she is a teenager. Multiple traits in one person do exist. But it's not natural for the traits to contradict each other. In the case of Stephanie, she only decides on one over the other in a way that is most convenient for the script. Nowadays, the film is known as the breakout roles for Michelle Pfeiffer, who plays the leading lady, and Christopher McDonald, who plays one of the T-Birds, and later on the voice of Kent Mansley in The Iron Giant. But unlike Michelle Pfeiffer, who was an unknown actress when her role was being casted, the leading man, Maxwell Caulfield, was pretty well known before the film came out, appearing in Broadway shows like The Elephant Man and entertaining Mr. Sloan. Another contrast is that Caulfield's career was actually damaged with the failure of Grease 2. It took about 10 years for him to recover from the loss, and nobody wanted to cast him in their projects. It's not exactly anything personal. It's just that his performance as Michael was not very good, and his singing voice A lot of it was affected by the mediocrity of the songs. Apparently, the idea of the sequel was that this would have spawned a Grease franchise consisting of 4 films and a TV series. Thankfully, the film's failure stopped such thing from happening. Why did the producers have the idea of a sequel in mind? The first film was just fine the way it is, nothing needed to be added. It's just about as unnecessary as Jaws 2, Rocky 2, Poltergeist 2, Karate Kid 2, Home Alone 2, and the many direct-to-video Disney sequels. You can just very easily go about your day forgetting that Grease 2 exists. You don't need it in your life. It's not an absolute abomination, but it's still pretty wretched. I just skipped this one.